Hey guys, so it's Luke again with Motor Minds, and today we are in a 2016 Acura MDX. So, as I've been saying, crossovers and SUVs are all the rage nowadays due to their added versatility. And nowadays, manufacturers such as Acura, Mercedes, Audi, all the big boys are out there making super luxurious SUVs that can make you look nice and fancy, take you to your executive job, take your family around in leather-lined comfort, and you can throw a lot of crap in the back. So this market is increasingly competitive, and because of that, Acura has recently redesigned its competitor, the MDX. So what we're going to talk about is, does the MDX really stack up against the ever increasingly competitive competition? And quite frankly, I think it does, but I will tell you the reasons in a moment. Let's start off with the styling. So the styling of this car, the first thing you'll notice between this MDX and the old MDX is that this MDX is much bigger. So to start, the entire car is taller, it's longer, it's wider. It just has bigger dimensions so that way you can fit more stuff and take more people in increased comfort. But the first thing you'll notice with this car is the front end is quite striking. You have these jeweled LED headlights that just stare you down, and I think they're really nice looking, and they add an air of luxury to this car just because it makes it look a lot more upscale than cars with regular headlights. I really like the jeweled effect. They make them look big, and they're very aggressive looking. Now, the grille of this car is interesting. It kind of looks like a beak. It has the Acura emblem, and it tends to share that grille with the entire Acura lineup. They all have that kind of beak effect on them, which is kind of interesting. And then you move on to the sides, you have your 18-inch alloy wheels, which make the car ride pretty nice. But other than that, the wheels do look a little bit small compared to the overall size of this car, since this car is just so big. But the side of this car really doesn't have a whole lot of design elements going on. Kind of looks like your classic SUV, not a whole lot of differentiation going on there. But then when you go onto the back, the whole back seems to be a lot taller. The old MDX seemed to slope down a bit in the back, but this one's a lot higher up. Creates a very easy load platform for the trunk. And I really like the way it looks. This car doesn't have visible exhausts, but you can get the MDX with dual exhaust in the back. And also, I really like the taillights. I think they look pretty aggressive, and they really tie the whole car together. But overall, it's a very stylish, not super conservative in its design, but I think it looks pretty good overall. It's not too out there, which is good. It's going to appeal to a lot of the market. So let's talk about the powertrain of the MDX. So it has your typical 3.5 liter V6, putting out 290 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque. And it's mated to a very, very controversial 9-speed automatic. It's Acura's brand new 9-speed, and it shifts pretty smoothly. But one thing I've never been a fan of with these multi-speed transmissions like the 9 speeds and the 8 speeds is that it just seems to, oh my God, man, what are you doing? This guy was just completely over the line. But yeah, so the thing I don't like about these 9-speed transmissions is that they seem to dilute the engine's power a little bit because it's constantly changing gears, and it has shorter ratios low down, so you're going like just constantly shifting. And in this car, it's not as pronounced as it is in other 9-speeds, like Chrysler's 9-speed. Oh my God, that thing never shuts up. But it has paddle shifters, but quite frankly, I would never use them ever, because the problem is you don't have a sole paddle shift mode. This transmission will continue to shift gears normally as it seems fit, and then when you pull a paddle shifter, it will put it in the gear that you ask, but it takes a solid second and a half to do so, and if you're not constantly on the paddles, the transmission will take over and start shifting by itself, so it's really quite useless. I wouldn't bother ever using them. But I think the place where this transmission gets most of its controversy is in the way that you select gears. So you don't have a regular gear knob or a gear lever like you would see in other cars. Instead, you have gear buttons. Now, what it is basically is you have this little control center thing here on the center console where you have 6 buttons. You have park, reverse, neutral, drive. Actually, it's only 5 buttons. And then IDS, which basically controls the way the car handles. You have comfort, sport, and normal mode. So those are actually pretty interesting, but a lot of people, especially a lot of automotive journalists, complain about this system being unintuitive to use or some BS. I mean, quite honestly, they just don't want to get over the fact that there's no lever anymore. It's very easy to use. All you do is push a button. There's a big fat button here that's green that says drive on it. You push it and lo and behold, the car moves forward. It is not very revolutionary. It's pretty easy to use, and quite frankly, people need to get over it. So other than that, this car, the powertrain, it's quick. It does 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds. It's quiet, and overall, it's very refined. I would not be complaining if I had to drive around with this powertrain. And it has Acura super handling all-wheel drive, so you can take this car in snow, wet weather, some mild off-roading, and you'll know you'll be okay. Of course, it's part-time all-wheel drive, which means you get an EPA estimated 18 city, 26 highway, which is actually really good. That's what you would expect to see from some front-wheel drive competitors, but instead you have the added bonus of all-wheel drive, which is rather nice. So let's talk about the interior of this car. Now, the interior is probably what you're buying this car for more than anything else, because it's a luxury SUV. It has to blow you away, and it has to be something that you look forward to getting in every day. So with the Acura, it's a whole new interior, and I must say I absolutely love it. It's very upscale looking. I really love the center stack here with the way the air vents are shaped at like 45-degree angles away from the display here. You have nice wood, everything's soft touch, and it's very appealing to look at. Now, the seats themselves are super comfortable. They're like couches up here. You have tons of adjustment. I actually have thigh support, which being 6'2" is hard to come by in cars, and I'm very thankful for that. The center console is nice and big. I have a huge armrest. It's just overall very nice and very airy in here. It feels big. You feel like you have tons of space, which is super nice. It makes it feel very roomy. Now, the second row is actually pretty big. You can actually slide the second row seats forward and backward to increase legroom and cargo capacity as you deem fit. They recline. You have separate climate control back there, and overall, it's a very pleasant place to be. Now, the third row, I'm not so sure anyone over like 5 feet tall is going to want to sit back there, but it is possible. I did try it. And yeah, that was interesting. And then behind the third row, there's actually a fair amount of cargo room. Not too much, just because there's not a kind of bin where you can put stuff in. It doesn't really go that deep, but obviously you fold down the third row and there is tons of room back there. Now, let's get on to the features in this car. Now, this is a pretty base model MDX. It's not fully loaded, so it doesn't have anything like navigation, but what it does have is Honda and Acura's shared two-display infotainment system. Now, I do not understand why they decide that you need two displays. The bottom display is a touchscreen, and it has haptic feedback. It has clear graphics, and it's actually pretty easy to use. It's a system you'll see in Hondas. But set up and further back into the dash is another screen, but it's not a touchscreen. It's operated by this rotary knob. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't really serve any function besides to like tell you stuff that's already shown on the bottom screen. Like right now, it's showing me my fuel economy, which is actually pretty good, 21.1 mpg. But other than that, it has like your radio stations, which you can also see on the bottom screen. It just seems redundant. It seems like they could do away with it and just have the touch screen, which is way easier to use. Now, stuff like the AC controls, super easy to use. The volume knob's kind of weird because it actually pops out. You have to push it and pop it out before you use it. But at least it's not that stupid touch-sensitive piece of garbage that's in other Hondas where you have to scroll your finger along it and it's just annoying. So let's talk about the drive. The drive in this car is actually really interesting. I'm driving along now in normal mode. Now, of course, there's 3 modes. You have comfort, normal, and sport. So normal mode is pretty nice. You have a nice ride. The ride in this car is very good. It's not super isolated, but it soaks up the bumps while maintaining a good connection with the road itself. If you're looking for something that's really floaty and completely isolated, you might want to look elsewhere, but it's a very comfortable ride. But the handling is very interesting because I'm driving along in normal mode, like I said, and the steering is very light. It doesn't have a whole lot of feedback. Once you're at higher speeds, like right now I'm doing 55, and it feels pretty good. But once you really get past that, there's not a whole lot going on with the steering. But if you put it in sport mode, it completely changes. Of course, it's electric power steering, so the sport mode puts in a false weight, but that false weight's actually pretty decent. It makes the car feel a lot smaller than it is, and there's actual minimum body roll, which is very nice. A lot of these high-up SUVs, you'll feel like you're about to fly out the window when you try to go around a turn, but this thing actually controls its size very well, and I'm pretty impressed with that. But, of course, it's no sports car, but if you do need to hustle, it'll hustle. But the other thing that I love and honestly, this isn't from a driver's perspective, it's just because I think it's funny, is when you put it in comfort mode, it literally feels like the steering rack is made out of marshmallows. It is so comically light and unconnected, I would never even bother putting it in that mode. I'd probably just leave it in sport mode, to be honest, just because it makes me feel the most confident in the way the car handles. So, overall, let's talk about the personality of this car. So, to be honest, these super luxury SUVs don't really have that much of a personality. They feel more like luxurious, leather-wrapped, wooden-grained appliances, so to speak. But the MDX, to be honest, I think it feels more family-oriented than the other competitors in this class. It feels more usable. It has like luxury and whatnot, but it's more of a utilitarian form of luxury, if you know what I mean. Like, it feels very usable. It's not something you're going to worry about getting a little bit dirty because, like, oh, I might put a nick in the leather, or like, oh man, you got to be careful and like not putting a scratch in the wood trim or something like that. It's not one of those cars. It feels very usable. It feels like something you could get in, throw some skis in the back, go do your adventure, haul the family around. And I really like that because it provides a lot of usability, but it still is super comfortable, super refined, quiet, everything you'd want in a luxury car, and I feel like that's the core appeal of this car. Now, in terms of me like feeling a big connection with the car itself, I don't really get much of that. But honestly, people in this segment don't care about that. They want something that's luxurious, comfy, usable, practical, and this car certainly delivers in that department. Thanks again for tuning in to Motor Minds. Coming up next week, we have the Hyundai Accent. It's got a pretty good review. You may be surprised by just how good that car is. And I look forward to seeing you guys watching our next video.